no wrong. Everything the man did was magic. My earliest memory of Michael Jackson is when I first really started taking singing seriously. I hated my singing voice. I had kind of a high nasally type of tone, and I didn't really like it. So my mom gave me Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album, as well as Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July, and told me to study just the way that they use their instrument to help me get better at, get more comfortable with using mine. And from then on, I was in love with Michael Jackson, his tone, his creativity, just the whole thing. There will never be another Michael Jackson. And it's a sad day for it, not just R&B music, but pop music period. It's a really sad day for us.
And we're looking at you. We're also looking at early pictures of Michael Jackson back from the days of the Jackson 5, and we just watched him from the Off the Wall album. Is that the Michael Jackson you remember? And when you think, you know, your first impulse when you think about Michael Jackson, is it the Michael Jackson of Thriller, or is it pre-Thriller?
Michael Jackson was, I mean, and not only for this to sound funny or anything like that, but Michael Jackson was a man of many faces, and I'll remember him for each way that he was, until you know, till today.
Neo, appreciate you coming in and talking with us. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And we want to tell you, we just got a statement from Lisa Marie Presley, who was, of course, married at one time to Michael Jackson, and it reads, quote, "I am so very sad and confused with every emotion possible. I am heartbroken for his children, who I know were everything to him, and for his family. This is such a massive loss on so many levels. Words fail me." Again, that was from Lisa Marie Presley.
We're also here with our panelists, Emil Wilbekin, managing editor of Essence.com, James Walker, entertainment attorney, and John Norris, former MTV News correspondent. You know, Emil, when you look at those early videos of Michael Jackson, even the Off the Wall video, you know, there's such exuberance and joy, and he seems to be having such a good time. Was he, though? I mean, did later on, do you think that joy, did it remain in the music?
Well, I think, you know, he's a classic child star. There's a lot of energy and exuberance when he performs, but there's kind of a sadness and a disconnectedness to it as well. And I think that the thing of Michael is that when we saw him perform, it was just like the lights were up. But then as his career went on and the stories got more crazy and there was, you know, marriages and allegations and different things, there was a certain darkness that came about it. But if you ever see pictures with he and his kids, always happy. If you see him perform, always happy. So there's this weird dichotomy, which I think makes him the most incredible entertainer.
And I don't know if I'll ever know. You know, I think reams have already been written about what happened to this person who we see there at 8 years old or whatever, just joyous. Yeah. You know, and I Want You Back is just, to this day, that song makes me smile. And then how a few years ago, he's this figure, pale figure under an umbrella, walking into a child molestation trial. And how that happened over 30 years, I don't know that we'll ever know the whole story, but as you're saying, I mean, it was the 80s that this withdrawal began. And I think that was at the root of it, was a withdrawal, and then, you know, someone else earlier talked about, I think Susan Blond talked about the wall of people around him. And then he had
this wall of people around him, and yet at the same time, he was this recluse. I mean, who was really close to him, if anyone? He went through a series of assistants, as I understand, you know, and I think there was probably a lot of paranoia there, you know, and he felt most comfortable, of course, with children, with small children. And, you know, Jeff said earlier he had an unhealthy relationship with children, and on some level that may have been, but I also think he genuinely loved them and felt. He also had these very high-profile friendships, as we know, Elizabeth Taylor and Brooke Shields. And I want to bring back Brian Monroe, who had the very last interview with Michael Jackson, again, at Ebony Magazine. And Brian, I mean, in your conversations with him, I mean, why did you want to do this piece? What were you trying to get at with him, and what was most striking to you about what he told you?
Well, you know, it was the piece was done on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of Thriller, you know, the biggest selling album in modern music history. And he talked a lot about the making of that album, the music making process, working with a German guy from the group Heatwave named Rod Temperton, and how they would battle back and forth and who could write the best song, and they'd send them up to Quincy Jones, who was producing that album, and have Quincy almost bless them. And so there was a competitive spirit about him too. And And you know, the other part is interesting. You had Neo on earlier. He talked about Neo and how much he respected Neo's music and how he was keeping abreast of the modern music, and talked about wanting to go into the studio and working on this comeback album that unfortunately was never meant to be.
We're also joined by Gideon Diego, former MTV correspondent. You interviewed Michael Jackson.
Yeah, this was back in 2001 at his last big